Welcome to the Occult Rejects. This episode, I got somebody that I had met at the Cosmic Summit, so I'm very excited to get them on. But before we introduce that guest, we're going to introduce the other rejects that are joining me tonight. Unfortunately, Headless was having a connection problem, so he had to bow out. But definitely check out Headless's show and send some emails to his bag, Headless Giants podcast, or whatever it is. Fuck. See, I can't even remember the email. So, send it over to him, and we'll read it on our show on Thursday nights. Unfortunately, we couldn't do one this Thursday, but I think we're going to try to do it tomorrow. But, all right, that was Headless, and now on to Jacqueline. Thank you very much for joining us again tonight.
Yeah, thanks for the invite, Nick. Appreciate it. I'm Jacqueline, co-host of Universe Unveiled podcast, presented by the Institute for Natural Philosophy. And you can find us on all the regular places, X, Instagram, all the good spots, and YouTube, obviously, also. So, yeah, I'm excited to be here and talk about something that I have a lot of interest in. So
awesome. Good. I'm glad you made it then. And definitely go check out that show. It's rather new, but they've had great guests on already, and they're great. They're great podcasters. It's good stuff. So go definitely check it out. And my man Tyrone, somebody else that I had met from the Cosmic Summit. My man, what's going on? I think you're still muted there, sir.
Nah, it took a second to unmute for some reason. I pressed the button. I don't know why it's doing that, but hey, I'm glad to be here. I met Nick and Paul at Cosmic Summit. That was actually one of the best times I've had in a while. Everything you can find on me is at rebirthoftheword.com. And also, just like how Paul said, got flashed the book, Journey Through the Origins of History can be bought on Amazon. I appreciate it. I'm ready to get it started.
Thank you very much, sir. And finally, to Paul K. Brennan. I don't know if you mind.
Paul K. Brennan, Paul. Yeah.
Yes.
Family likes to call me Pablo. I guess that just became a kind of Pablo. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
I could call you Pablo if you want.
Yeah, well, it's okay. Paul's good. Anyway, I'm happy to be here. This is the first podcast to introduce my book, which is you guys the first. Yeah.
Holy
shit.
I
know a guy named Tino Struckman, and he has a channel, YouTube channel, and he's on Patreon, and he goes and checks out all the forts, World War I, World War II, and all the underground stuff that they were doing, the Nazis and stuff like that. So I've been trying to get him. He's a hard guy to pin down. But he's pretty cool.
Look into that guy for our guest on this show.
I could send you a link to his stuff.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
But he's pretty cool. Been around and stuff. So,
nice. So we're popping your cherry tonight. That is awesome.
Yes, we are. Just be gentle with me.
You already had a beer in you too, so you're a little.
Yeah. I'm trying to relax here. So yeah.
All right.
So anyway.
But so this book, Twilight of the Teutonics, Germany, Nazis. I mean, that's something.
Yeah, it's a labor of love. I've been writing it for 3 years. It was originally the idea. Well, I'll kind of give you some background. I went to Queens College, and I graduated in 2006. Okay, so I took major in media studies and minor in film. So I'm a huge, film buff, lover, that kind of thing. So, I was really wanting to get into film, and I had this idea. Originally, I had this idea of like Iraqi war veterans coming back, and they're all pretty fucked up. And one of them happens to be this cousin works at this bank, and they're like fixing the bank, and all the money's out in this area, and it's not in the vault. So I was going to have this idea of bank heist, like symbolically, sort of with the war with Iraq being kind of like a huge bank heist, which that's what it was.
I like putting it that way. That's pretty.
You know what I mean? It was. And I saw some documentaries. There's guys.
It was a money grab in multiple ways.
Oh yeah, there was gold. There was cash stacked in all these warehouses and
artifacts. I'm sure.
Oh yeah. So anyway, that was an idea, and I wrote a treatment, and then I had a really good, a fairly good friend who was he was a veteran there and stuff, and he was like, oh yeah, you got to do this, blah blah. But then we found out that it looked like I had my professor at Queens College. He had another student that had graduated some years ago, and he was like talking to him, and then I found out he worked out in Hollywood. So being the naive person I was, I had this treatment, so I gave it to him, and of course he utilized it for another film. Because then my friend, who was a buddy, he said, like, I think you might want to look at this film, because I think this is exactly what we're trying to do, And I watched it, yeah, and it was who was that Spanish comedian? I can't remember his name. He's I think he's Puerto Rican. Joe Marmo or something. I can't remember. I'd have to look it up and send you the link to it, which I could do. But anyway, it was actually a made-for-TV movie, and I think it was on, might have been on HBO, it might have been something else. But, it was a kind of a collaborative thing. And the whole idea was this bank heist type of idea. And it was going to be in Pennsylvania, and it was actually going to be in Scranton, though in this movie it was in Pittsburgh. But to make a long story short, there was a lot of things that happened. I had a spouse that unfortunately got cancer, so I had to kind of backtrack and stuff like that. But getting back to being at Queens College, and this idea that came when I was at the library there. And they had a very extensive World War II section in that library, very big. I was like pretty impressed, actually. They had a lot of books. I was surprised they got. And so basically, this idea popped in my head, and it's like German officer hiding Jewish identity. You know what I mean? Just something like it just popped in my head, right? And I'm like thinking, oh, forget it. No way. It just wouldn't happen. So then a couple years later, I'm kind of doing some, searching on the internet. I found this guy who wrote Brian Mark Riggs, and he wrote the book on the Jewish soldiers that were in the military in World War II. And so it ends up being documented, probably were more, I think, 150,000 that fought. It was full Jew, half Jew, and quarter Jew. Due to their, they had these, they call them the Munich laws. I think it was not the Munich laws, but there was these racial laws that they had that basically what was considered a Jew by the Nazi Party.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. I don't remember the name of that, but yeah, they had.
Yeah. Okay, I probably have it. It's actually in my. I can look it up right now, I guess. Get the book here. Of course, I had it here, and now I don't have it here. Oh, here it is.
I was right next to you. Look at that.
Here we go. Well, here's the book. Twilight Teutonics. And I have bibliography in the back and explanation of terms. Let's see here. Should be right here. The Nuremberg laws.
Oh,
that's what they're called. The Nuremberg laws. So anyway.
Well, I was going to say the Nuremberg trials, and I knew.
Well, there was Nuremberg trials, but they had these laws that were, they were created in Nuremberg, and basically they define what was, Jewish by the.
You know what's crazy? Not
the party.
The Nuremberg trials. The United States never adopted those laws, but yet helped prosecute them.
Mm-hmm.
How the fuck?
Yeah, I mean, it was really kind of like a. Yeah, I mean, there's just certain things, and then it got politicized.
They never agreed to those things themselves. This country.
What happened was, the malignity the massacre during Battle of the Bulge. Though basically they were supposed to get executed. They never did, because what happened was the Cold War, and they didn't want this. They were thinking that they were going to need the Germans to fight the Soviets, so it got sort of political in a sense, that a lot of the stuff that they were going to, charge these guys, most of them got away with a lot of stuff. And then, and then the whole
Tons of them.
rat line with the escape to South America.
Mm-hmm.
And then even Operation Paperclip. I mean, we brought about 1,000 Nazis over, and then they came into our system. You know what I mean? So in our intelligence and our aerospace and even our medical,
Oh, huge.
So, yeah,
huge
big time.
Field. Yeah.
Yeah. Even that, remember the so-called creature that washed up in Long Island about, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago? Looked like a half seal dog or whatever the hell. Well, the guy that ran that island, that facility, was a former Nazi that ran that facility. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a heavy. I even covered it on the Occult Rejects. Me and Lisa covered it.
Yeah.
She showed she kind of showed how she thinks like Lyme disease was like genetically weaponized by the Nazis. But like we were showing a huge Nazi presence on Long Island since before World War II, dude.
Oh yeah, big time. I mean, and then the subs, and you could go into the whole Montauk thing.
There was I would even question how truthful this was, but like there was 33 Nazi spies busted at one time on Long Island back in like the 1930s. I'm like 33, of course, but
right. Yeah.
So it was just and like at one point the United Nations was actually held on Long Island, and that was during the time there was a heavy Nazi presence before World War II. It was really,
and then interesting enough, though, they kind of he said they kind of. With Hitler, there were family members of Hitler that were living in Long Island. They looked a lot like him too.
No, there was a town just recently in Yaphank that finally got told they had to stop. But like we covered them on the show, you had to be German in order to even move into that fucking area. They wouldn't let you move in unless you were German.
It probably I wouldn't be. Yeah, it
was a little Nazi town prior in the past.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and there's actually I think there's actually film. You can probably find it on YouTube. You were doing parades and all kinds of little operation, like maneuvers, and they were doing all kinds of stuff. So anyway,
it started to make me wonder when I grew up. I was like, like Long Island was like in school very pro like government and military and war, and I'm like, is that from the Nazi like influence?
I mean, I lived in New York City, I lived in Manhattan, and I lived in Queens and stuff. And my first wife was from Long Island, and I always got this vibe. The place.
Very nationalism. I'd be totally.
Yeah. I mean, and then there's that whole occult thing going on. There was a lot of freaking Satanist stuff going on there too. It seemed like
there was a lot.
I mean, am I right? I mean,
in the neighborhood, actually, weird shit.
Yeah. So I mean, it's Long Island's. You probably could do like a couple of shows on Long Island. I'm sure.
Yeah, I lived near Brookhaven Labs too, so I mean that was just like a weird area.
Right. Yeah. So anyway,
sorry to interrupt you though.
No. We're probably going on tangents anyway with this. So getting back to the thing. So I'm like. The whole idea was like, oh, this is not a thing. But then the guy wrote the books, and I'm like, then I got to do this, But the original idea was a film. I wanted to do like a movie, but then it was sort of like, I'm writing a script, and it's just going on and on and on, And then I have a stepsister that works in Hollywood, does script writing and everything else.
Yeah.
And she, in 10 minutes kind of ran down how it really works in Hollywood. And if it's over 100 pages, if you're not like Scorsese or something, it get 120 pages. It goes into the shredder. I mean, it's not even looked at. They don't even look at it. They won't even look at it.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So just kind of a warning to anybody If you really want to do a script, I mean, you might have a good idea, But then, my stepmom's like, damn man, this could be a novel. She's looking all, because I got all this dialogue already set up and everything. And then Anne goes, you could make more money because basically sell the rights, you can make a lot more money than if you sold the script. So then I was like, the bell went off in my head, bing, and I'm like, all right, now I'm going to write a novel instead, because then I can do and have what I want as the story, and if they put it on film and they fuck it up, well, I have my book. You know what I mean? That was my feeling about it. It was like, so I, began with notebooks first, and the whole idea was kind of identity. I mean, he's sort of like the character Wolfhauser. He's the main character. He is in the paratroopers. They were probably one of the more elite, like, military groups in the Third Reich, other than the Waffen SS, which he ends up being in by a kind of weird kind of arrangement, which I don't want to really. That's a spoil alert. I don't want it to keep, because I like the people to read. But basically, he finds out, he gets a letter, his commander gets it. So then he reads it to him. It's like, look, why don't you go talk to your mom, find out what's going on? Well, so I guess, there was a family secret, right? So, and he's just like, oh my God, because he wants to go up the ranks. He's just made lieutenant, you know what I mean? And so there's this weird thing where Himmler is having this New Year's Eve party at Welsberg Castle.
Himmler's got to have an awesome party. If he's throwing parties, I guarantee.
All right. Well, anyway, I don't. This is the fact and the fiction of fact. Now, this castle existed, and he was setting this up as a center for SS studies. Okay, he wanted to make this place the Vatican. With Welsberg Castle. Have you heard of it before?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so he had all these ideas, that he wanted with this castle of his, and so what had happened was this party probably wouldn't have happened because he's inviting all these people into this castle. It's like financiers, other officers, so basically it's this open thing, which I don't think would have happened in real. But I made it as a vehicle because there's so much weirdness that goes on with this castle. Because it used to be, they tried witches back in like the 1500s in this castle, and they hung them in the courtyard.
Yeah.
You've heard of that?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, the place, it's sort of like what it is okay. His officer says, look, we'll go to this party, get some time and talk to Himmler, and maybe he can clear this up. Because maybe, this is some kind of clerical mistake or something, right? So anyway, so he goes to this part. And it's a kind of a pivotal part in the book because there's a lot of stuff going on. This kind of Game of Thrones stuff starts. And this is where the Hat Man, as I call him, appears. And he's connected with this whole hidden financial thing going on with the Third Reich. Okay. He's sort of symbolic. He's kind of a composite of a couple of financiers that were helping the Nazis back at the time. So anyway, so he goes to the party, and I'll just let it at that because there's a lot of things that go on, and that's spoiler alert, and I don't want to,
Yeah, of course. You want people.
So when it happens is it's sort of like, he's like, he meets an officer who's an adjutant of Reinhardt, So what happens is that he says, I'll set up a meeting and we would probably take care of this anyway. So he's all like thankful. So he has the meeting with Heinrich, and it's a disaster because Heinrich's totally like, well, he went and looked into it, and there's all these discrepancies, with the birth certificates and all this other stuff. So he's just like, we're fucked, the family's fucked, and I don't know what I'm going to do and stuff. So, so it kind of goes into this thing where before, when he was like, there is a battle. The Germans invaded the lower countries, which basically was like Belgium, France, the Netherlands and all that other stuff. So the paratroopers were very prominent in that campaign. And there's a famous commando raid that was done on the fort of EMML, which was basically they came in gliders, okay, and landed on top of the fort, and they took the fort with just basically a platoon of guys because of the surprise, because they would never think they would come from above. This thing was people thought this fortress was impenetrable. You know what I mean? It had guns, and it was right at the canal. So this is where they had to go through to get to where they wanted to go into Belgium and everything else. So what happened was they landed on Hing. So I go and describe that whole battle. So he has a buddy, and he finds out he has the whole Jewish thing going on.
Real quick,
Okay.
I hate to like go back to this.
Yeah.
You said they came in on gliders?
They came in on gliders. Yeah.
Like what? Like I don't know why, but that's just like bringing me back to the dude with the lawnmower on his back and a fucking pillowcase with the other one.
Yeah, I mean, it was ingenious. They really, really planned it. I mean, like up to like a year. It's 6 months of actually training. Okay, they had this planned, and Hitler actually was the one kind of sort of helped it kind of helped along with it. So he was always kind of into the whole what's the next innovative weapon and all this other stuff. So they were using these high end explosives to blow up the cupolas, which were basically cannons that stuck out of the ground. They could swivel basically like 360 degrees anywhere. So this was like so innovative. Nobody thought they would do this, right? So they come in these gliders, and they're only like a platoon, So, and the guys on the ground are all freaking out because they're thinking there's more guys. This is like a huge attack and all this other stuff. So I go in that whole thing, and basically his friend finds out he has the same dilemma. His mom, was born, was Jewish, but they converted when she was younger. So it was one of those things they always thought, well, what's the big deal? So anyway, that's a dilemma that goes on. So there's a thing where basically, this is kind of a spoiler alert, but the friend's mother dies. Okay, so there's a funeral. So this is where a deal is made. So I'll just leave it at that. So he ends up going into the Waffen SS. So there's this whole thing where he's kind of rehabilitated again. He was with a commander that's General Steiner, which was pretty an innovative general at the time. And then there's a incident which puts him in a situation where he has to, he attacks like a Wehrmacht officer. Okay. And then what happens is he's kind of demoted, and then he has to be in the Eisengruppen. Okay. So I go in that whole thing. I'll leave that there for that story to people to read because it's pretty heavy. It goes into some even stuff that's kind of what's kind of going on now with things we're finding out. So I'll leave that as kind of like a hint, So anyway, there's that whole thing, and then there's this whole, like I said, there's this whole, like, as they call it, like Game of Thrones thing going on in the background that, he's connected with, but you're finding out how the Reich really works, if you kind of understand what I mean.
Yeah.
Okay, so I really go into what Bormann and his control over everything and how he gained control of running the Reich. Because
did that really happen?
It did happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was the secretary, and he got into Hitler's confidences, and basically he was like the guy.
He positioned himself.
Yeah,
he
was the guy everybody had to
go
go through to get to Hitler, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even Himmler had
everybody.
Wow. I thought Himmler was a fucking boy.
Well, Himmler was like, he was like that. It was like the relationship he had with Hitler was like that kind of boyhood worship. Like he just, he had to get that approval from the Fuhrer. So there was a point in time where everything's going to shit. And then it's sort of like his, one of his officers is like, trying to convince him, it's just not going to work out. You have to stand up and take over, but he's so reluctant, you know what I mean? So, I bring in a lot of these ideas of the sort of the secret kind of financial cabal that was behind that was going on. And, basically there's some, esoteric stuff that kind of comes in and out, though he's kind of a, and a military guy. He's basically being exposed to a lot of stuff he would never, ever be exposed to if he didn't have the situation happen to him. Right. So that's the kind of the idea that his situation brings him into this whole inner sanctum thing. And you just find out all this stuff you wouldn't find out. So that's kind of sort of the gist of the book. And it's sort of, there's two endings. You get a kind of a good ending, and then probably what really probably would have happened ending. So I kind of sort of leave it at that. So, and if there's any other questions, I'm certainly I'll be open to it.
So you started out, at first it was a screenplay.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. And then
I had hundreds of pages of dialogue.
Okay.
This whole story was like I was writing it as a movie.
Right.
And if you read the book, it is very cinematic. So I think a lot of people like it that way.
Sure, like a
you
historical
can see,
fiction, right? It engages people,
Right. So you're seeing it. You're kind of getting his whole, oh shit, what would I do if I'm in this situation type of thing. That kind of thing. And there's mind games and and political, just some uncomfortable stuff.
A perfect backdrop, right? Like that historical.
Yeah. I mean, he's like
backdrop.
He's being, like I said, I mean, he's like thrown into these situations, and it's just like, I mean, nothing seems what it, like I said, the nothing is what it seems. You know what I mean? And this is what the guy says. They haven't put him on this sort of this spy trip in Paris.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what his handler says to him. It's like, he goes over the whole thing with how the espionage thing works. It's not like being a soldier. You know where the enemy is. It's over there and he's over there. But, your friends could be your friends today and then tomorrow they want to kill you, that kind of thing. So there's, he gets this kind of, you get this in and out of, wow, this guy's going through this whole experience, and how is it going to end? You know what I mean? So, but I'll have to say there's clues, because if you read the beginning relates to the end, because that comes back again.
Nice.
So that's a clue. So the little beginning section, kind of the prelude, comes at the end as a denouement. So that's like the second ending. So it's a lot of deep, dark kind of psychological things. Kind of like it was really good shadow work for me. I'll have to say,
Really?
yeah,
Interesting that you said that.
kind of because you're just kind of going into these guys were, and then the other thing I'll tell you this, we can go into they are kind of like a dark Knights Templar, the Nazis,
Yeah.
and when you look at them and the way
Oh,
they
they're
were,
cultists, for sure.
yeah, they were all kind of like the way it was set up. It was very similar, particularly like the SS.
Yeah.
The SS were kind of like a dark, it was like a dark Camelot, dark, knighthood, so to
They're,
speak.
I would say they're probably both doing the same thing with trying to collect old artifacts. So, I mean,
Well, yeah, I mean that was I do that. There's a thing in there that deals with that. There's a certain thing that goes on with that, but they were into like kind of like they were like creating, Holy Blood, Holy Grail. Everybody, I'm assuming, has read that book. Maybe they haven't.
oh,
Okay,
actually,
you've heard of it.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard of it.
Okay, I recommend reading it. It came out in 1981, and this is what before Dan Brown. These are the guys that really started putting it on the map with the whole Mary Magdalene. Jesus was married, had children, that whole thing, in the south of France, and the whole Rene Chateau, right? So they wrote another book, and the second book dealt with the Prior of Sarion, which was supposed to be like the secret society. It was behind creating the Templars, right? Okay, so what's interesting about that book was they kind of do this whole section about religions, and then just the origin of religions, and then they went into like the idea of man-made religions, because I never understood why the Nazis got into power. I mean, they voted them into power. It's like, how did these guys get into power? Didn't make any damn sense. But the Nazis were a religious movement masquerading as a political movement.
Yeah. Well,
That's what they were. They were a religious cult. And then when you start looking at it that way, it makes total sense. It's just like they were a cult, and they had this messianic, guy that could speak, and he, you got to understand, he could talk your language. He was able to do that. Focus on, hey, look at this. What is this, and everybody's like, yeah, and when hard times come, these guys are more listened to than they would normally be, right?
Yeah.
So this is kind of what happened. They got seduced, and he was more like a Loki than he was like a Wotan. You know what I mean? So this
Yeah,
kind
you
of
ever see like the old videos of them like parading down the streets with like pagan gods and shit?
Well, they were, this was like they were wanting, it was in their idea of it, but they were trying to go back to this old religion, right? In their, their form of what they wanted it. You know what I mean? But it created, it was sort of created this whole like, why it moved so quickly, because it was always in the background in the German, historical milieu. You know what I mean? It was always there. It was just, most people understand that Germany was all these principalities. It really didn't come together until like the 1870s under one umbrella, the Bismarck, which was considered the Second Reich. Okay. And as a country, it was really a recent like phenomena as a unified thing, because there were all like different principalities, different, royalty. So the Germans were more, the mentality was they more were interested in the aristocratic royal. You know what I mean? They prefer that kind of rulership to like democracy or that kind of thing. So it was like when the Weimar years came, which were interesting. They were just kind of underlyingly the Germans, the conservative side of the German population never was comfortable with it, and then this guy comes along speaking their language, you know what I mean? Oh, he's gonna solve the problems. So, but then, like I said, there was this underlying thing going on with who was financing him and who was controlling him. Really, it wasn't like this independent character.
Yeah. What I mean, I think you kind of I mean, not to reiterate it again, but yeah, when it comes to the Nazi Party, I think that whole war was a cult. And it was like he even had like Italy going into Ethiopia and taking a cult shit for him. They took the lion.
Oh yeah, I mean that was whole, like I said, there was this whole thing
they
with
the Masonic lodges and taking shit.
Right. Well, that was the thing, and they kind of actually, when you look at some of the paraphernalia of Nazis, it kind of does look like sort of Freemasonry.
Mm-hmm.
They incorporated these systems into their own system, kind of, so to speak.
Yeah.
Though they outlawed. I mean the OTO Grand Master was put in a concentration camp. I think he got out eventually, but I don't think he lived too long after that. But anyway, so.
Paul, did you know I was in the OTO?
I heard some things about it. Yeah, I mean, it's. I'm sure it was interesting. I've never been, but I mean, it's kind of. I don't know. I mean, I think there's things. I think it's the right kind of like. I think with ceremonial magic, you have to find the right one to follow, because most of them, I think, are just charlatans.
Oh yeah.
I mean, do you agree with me?
Oh yeah, I think. Well, I think they're just ciphered and they're not even talking to you plainly about what they're trying to even say. So.
Right. Well, I mean, it's sort of like, I don't know. I mean, it's just sort of like they have stuff that's probably, legit, but then other stuff is like, I don't know. But
I do think there's a money aspect.
Yeah, well, probably a money thing, and then there could be a pedo thing too. I've heard that too.
Could be.
Yeah.
A lot of orders. I hear that shit about it.
I mean, if you heard of where does the book? I have his book here, maybe. This guy, which I befriended. I was trying to get him to do an interview. Confessions of Illuminati.
Oh, okay.
What's his name?
His name is Leon Zigami. Have you heard of him?
Oh God, I know Leo Zagami. I know who he is.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you should read these books, bro. I mean, I'm telling you, these are like total inside all that stuff.
Yo, yeah, he it's funny. I was on his website and he talks about how the OTO actually slapped him with a copyright infringement.
Oh, really?
In one of his books, and he mentions the chick's name, and I was like, "Oh, that's the same motherfucker that hit me for my the episodes when I covered the initiations." I was like, "Same chick," so I was like, "I know he ain't lying." You got to know that woman.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you want to see how screwed up some of these individuals are, I mean, you could read his books because he was in it.
Yeah. I remember watching videos of him. He was over in Europe, right?
Yeah. Well, the whole thing was back in it was 2006. I talked to him, and he was getting out of it. He wanted to get out of it, right? But he still had those lingering. He thought he was wanting to be the grand poobah of the whole, thing, I guess, or something. I don't know, but it got weird. I mean, if we get together some point, I will give you that conversation. I really don't want to get into it right now about talking to him about him because I never met him. I had a
Yeah,
lot of Skype like interactions with him, and I was trying to get him over to do like at a presentation and talk and stuff like that, but it never worked out. And then he threatened the president of Norway. He got arrested and shit. It got weird. It really kind of got weird. But anyway,
he's an interesting fellow for sure.
no. But then I think what he did is he kind of like probably went through this kind of dark thing and then cleaned up his act. And
Oh yeah, that's what it seemed like from the interviews I've seen from him.
Yeah, I mean he's
like
he's
Project
a lot.
Camelot days. I remember watching him.
Yeah, he's. I think he's in a better mindset. He was still.
Oh, he doesn't think he's Jesus anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. That kind of thing.
Yeah, he went through a phase
Exactly.
where he was Jesus.
Yeah, something like that. Right. Yeah, I don't know, but
yeah, no, he's a lot better since then for sure.
Right. So, any questions? Anybody out there that want to
talk about more Nazis?
More Nazis. Let's see.
You said you do get a little into the esoteric or the stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Himmler. Okay, yeah. There's an aspect I go into. There's this guy named Herr Wolf, who was their prominent astronomer or astrologer, who actually was the one that found out through astrology and probably, I'm thinking of probably a bit of like, I don't know, like psychic awareness where they were hiding El Duce because they wanted to get El Duce out of Italy. And so that was another paratrooper thing with gliders. They had to do it in the mountaintop of that hotel. But, he kind of was the one that kind of was able to pinpoint kind of where he was at more than anybody else, I guess. But what was going on at the end of the war, this guy Himmler was like getting consultation with this guy like every freaking hour. To what to do. I guess he was that accurate, you know what I mean? So he makes an appearance in the book, this Herr Wolf, who was like their astrologer. So I kind of go into the astrology as well, and they were very into that. The Nazis.
Yeah, they were actually.
Yeah. So I touch on that more. I don't, the next book I want to do is with the hidden technology. So I might get more into the sort of esoteric stuff and maybe the that society, the Abenaki. That was their their archaeological society that was going to find the artifacts and all this other stuff, right? So
I remember hearing about them a minute ago, and I had thought about doing an episode on them. I totally forgot about them. Yeah.
Well, we could, I certainly would be happy to come on that episode if you want. I mean,
yeah. Maybe we'll talk about doing that in the future. We could both talk.
We could, and I'll do some.
It's very interesting that whole like group of.
Oh yeah, they were
go out and get artifacts.
Yeah, they were all into finding these artifacts, and they've successfully found some stuff. I mean, and then there was the whole thing with Otto Rahn. He makes an appearance. His book makes an appearance in the book. Have you heard of Otto Rahn?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, interesting enough with him was he was hiding his homosexuality, and he looked like he was Michelinga, which is usually what they call the half-breeds. But he had maybe Jewish ancestry as well.
Oh, shit.
And Himmler was still trying to rehabilitate him. He didn't want him to get PSS, anyway, I mean, but, he was sending Otto on all these, like, intelligence gathering information, trying to find stuff. I mean, he went to Iceland. They were trying to prove a lot of their theories. There was the ice theory, the whole theory that this one researcher had this idea that was all based on the world was based on this ice kind of creation myth, so to speak.
I don't know that one.
Yeah. Could go more into theory. I mean, I didn't read much about it, but it's kind of fascinating. But they were all into something like Atlantis, but they were all into the one of the I can't remember the one it was called. Yeah, maybe it'll come to me. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, Himmler was doing all kinds of stuff, and then of course the expedition to Tibet. You've heard about that. Anybody you've heard about?
Yeah, all right. Yeah, go on. Go. What's up with the Tibet thing?
Well, I mean, they had a base of operations there, and they brought back artifacts. You know what I mean? So, I mean, they had a relationship with the Tibetan monks going through World War II. You know what I mean? And probably it continued afterwards, I think. So, anyway, but there was an expedition sent before the war, but there was another group that went during the war there too, and they were trying to like arm some of the, some militant groups there, because the Brits, the Brits were there too. So anyway,
that's interesting. All right.
Yeah, this is a good book. I'll show you a book that's pretty good.
Real quick too. I want to ask actually everybody's opinion.
This is about the expedition to Tibet. And this is a good book. The guy went and checked out everything. So I recommend this book.
Who's that by?
It's Christopher Hale, Hale. Himmler's Crusade. So, a lot were trying to prove their Aryan ancestry and all this other stuff. And, but a lot was, like I said, finding artifacts. And with Otto Rahn, he's usually considered kind of like the Indiana Jones, the German Indiana Jones. Or the character was definitely influenced by him, So, anyway.
So what do you think happened with the what do you think happened with them after the end of the war?
Well, I'll tell you what happened after. There's, okay, I'll tell you some things. Hitler might have gone to South America, but I'm highly doubting it because he had this huge phobia of water, especially open water. Okay.
Really?
Yeah. So to me, the only way they could have brought him over there would be had them to drug him the whole way.
Oh, yeah, he didn't like to fly either.
Yeah, and he didn't like. Okay, he didn't mind flying, but flying over water, he probably would have been freaking out. And then it wasn't like flying back then. You'd have to keep doing all these stops, which made things complicated. So my theory is, okay, Bormann. Hitler had all these doppelgangers. Understand what a doppelganger is. It's a double. Okay. He had many of them. Okay. And what I think it is, Bormann definitely went over to South America to set up shop, but he needed a distraction. So what better way to have these doppelgangers running around South America and everybody's chasing them, looking to see, well, Hitler's in it, the FBI's down there, the CIA's down there, and probably the KGB, but I think the KGB figured out pretty quickly that it wasn't Hitler. Do you know what I'm saying? Then what happened is, I think Bormann shut up shop, and then later on, he made a deal with us with the technology. And then this is when you see what happens in the 50s, it was just this huge, our, aerospace industry just like exploded, and then they were doing, the, what do you call it? The magnetic, the craft, probably the, anti-gravity crafts. They were working on that, was basically happening at the end of the war, and don't know if they had. I think they had prototypes, but I don't know if they had like full UFOs. But maybe in the time that they were in South America before they made the deal with us, they created some more prototypes, and some of those UFO so-called encounters people had were actually, of German origin as opposed to uh, like extraterrestrial. If you kind of understand what I'm saying,
Mm.
you know what I mean. So I think they had such a head start with the technology than we did. They were like years advanced. I mean, even like decades and more advanced than we were at the end of the war.
Hmm.
So naturally, I think Borman thought the United States was the best deal, and he made the deal with them, with us, as opposed to England and Russia. And so that's what I think happened. And he lived pretty much. There's speculation of how long he lived. I think he died in 1981, but some people speculate he might have died in the 50s because he had some kind of stomach ailment. But anyway,
Why do you
but
think it was 1981?
well, interesting enough, the Falkland Wars.
Okay.
England went and supposedly they felt that Falkland was supposed to be of British, and then it was like there was no like somehow or another. Well, why didn't you do it earlier, right?
Mm.
You know what I mean? So I think he was there as kind of a deterrent to that because, okay, kind of an example of in our culture. Okay, the James Bond films, especially in the '60s,
Mm-hmm.
and they there was this group called Spectra.
Yes.
Remember? Okay, well, Spectra probably was the Fourth Reich group. It was just used in a symbolic way in a film to show that there was this other group that had a higher technology that was doing all this stuff. That wasn't the Russians, but it was another group, right?
Okay.
So the Nazis were still doing stuff, but they were just like it was one of those, oh, it's nothing, But everybody in the know knew it was them. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
So and I think when he died, they kind of made a deal. I think the Bank of International Settlements made a deal with probably him or something like that, and the money went into certain kind of projects, which probably we're seeing right now with the whole Bretton Woods and the whole European thing with with BlackRock and everything else. I mean, there's definitely probably some connection there that goes back to Borman, I'm sure. It wouldn't surprise me. Let's put it that way.
Was there anything that you guys wanted to mention about with Nazis to talk about?
I have a
Nah,
question.
y'all already.
Oh, go ahead, Tyrone.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to ask a question about your the next book you want to write. Is it going to be a continuation of the one you've already written, or independent?
It will be, like I said, I have this idea of 3 different books, but it will be independent.
Okay.
I mean, in terms of like, there'll be certain characters that you'll see that were in this book that will
Mhm.
be in the other book, but it'll be in kind of a different context,
Okay.
and maybe it might be, I mean, Hans Klammer, who's the one that was in charge of all the exotic technologies, he makes an appearance in this book, but it's not a long one. It's a brief appearance. It's kind of like Bormann is setting up the Fourth Reich. There's this meeting. Okay, I'll leave it at that. And so he's there. So there's this discussion, and then in the next book, he'll be more prominently in the next book because he was running the whole thing. Though I have another idea of maybe like a fictional character that was like a spy that's embedded in this thing. So, and maybe other characters. But thinking more of the next one would probably be trying to be more historically onto the thing, if possible.
Okay.
And then third book will probably be about Borman in South America. So that's the idea of the third book. Though, who knows? I might do a fourth book on the, you know, Maria Orsic and her group of Brilliant women. I'm thinking about that one too. So we'll see.
Okay.
You know, so then I'm thinking about, doing some stuff with the Knights Templar. Writing some books there. It might be a series of like 3 books. I talked to Tim Hogan. He might be helping assist me with that. We'll see. Hopefully that might happen.
Oh, thanks. Well,
yeah.
Someone to ask.
Yeah. So his books are great, by the way. I mean, I don't know if you've read his books, but I'll have to say he concises a lot of information in a very short style, so it's very digestible.
No, you are actually correct. Yeah, I got one of his books that he signed, and from the conference, and it was like for me.
It's very. It's not like this, tome. Like 300 or 400 pages. I mean, it's very, but it gets to the fundamentals of like alchemy and trying to how to understand how it works and stuff. So it's pretty cool. So. And but like, please, everybody listening, buy my book, please, and please make if you like it, please make a nice write up on Amazon or where you buy it.
Is it available on Amazon now?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
I gave him. I texted you the my website. So I don't know if maybe you could publish it afterwards.
Oh yeah, I'll put it up there.
There. Sure. So, and I'm probably be working on getting it on YouTube, and who knows, I'll be probably doing this eventually too. So maybe I'll probably be part of the rejects myself at some point.
No, you should definitely talk about what you do with the Templars.
Yeah. Well, it's the Templars. In a lot of ways, the book kind of was inspired by the Templars because I wanted to understand how the Templars worked. And since the Nazis were closer historically, analyzing them was kind of like, it kind of helped out with kind of understanding them in terms of how the sort of like the, the hierarchy a little bit, maybe in terms of like, how it worked in a way. It was certainly different, but there were a lot of similarities with the SS and the Knights Templar. Although Himmler said, he wanted to. It was more the the Jesuits. He felt that the SS was more like modeled on the Jesuits. Though the Jesuits, some people say the Jesuits were kind of modeled after the Knights Templar as well, right? So, though I have theories about the Jesuits, but I don't know. It's one of those things that the historical connection kind of breaks off. But I'm thinking the Jesuits are connected with the Order of the Assassins. Yeah, and if you look at the founder of the Jesuits, he belonged to this group called the Alumbrados, it's in Spanish, it's called the Illuminated Ones. And there were definitely seemed to be this sect that seemed very similar to how the, let's say the assassins kind of, followed, ritual wise, at least, maybe, but I don't have any like solid proof. But I think a lot of the you know the Order of Assassins broke up, and they probably went different places, similar to the Templars. And I think Spain was one of those places because of that Spanish Moorish, kind of thing that was going on there. The kind of the Arabic kind of influence was very heavy in Spain because the Moors, so who knows, something to think. It's something that I hope that maybe I'll find out. But Tim Hogan was open to that conjecture. Actually, he said, "Yeah, that
Really?
might be." Yeah, he was. Yeah, yeah. Which I
Oh,
thought.
that's
Oh.
impressive.
I mean, I get these. I tell you, I get these intuitions about things, and they end up being pretty spot on sometimes. So anyway, but
That is interesting. I'm surprised you said that.
yeah. So.
Oh, I mean, it's the truth.
Well, like I said, I will, be probably conversing with him. I'm probably gonna record something for myself with him.
Yeah,
Just
please.
to get, but it'd probably be, but I could give you highlights of what happened with that. So anyway, yeah. So.
Do you want to let everybody know like about the book like one more time, or like any
Yeah, well, it's available at it's available at it's not bad. I'm actually, let me make an announcement. Anybody in North Carolina, I'm going to be at the Greensboro Barnes and Noble on September 6th from 12 to 5 for book signing. So anybody wants to drop by, I'll be there. And I'm hoping maybe we can meet at the thing in December that we mentioned.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Yeah.
That would be wild if we ended up at the same place.
And
that would be cool as fuck.
Yeah. So, and then, like I said, right now I'm kind of busy trying to sell my book and working on probably some other things. So, like YouTube and all this other stuff. So, it will be coming. I'm on X, but I haven't really been posting on X. But also I'm on Instagram. So, as you know. So.
Yes, that I know for sure. You're on there.
Right.
Yeah, if you want, I can leave that down there as well as with
right.
Site. Yeah, you know what? Just real quick, because you reminded me about it. I think it's December 18th. Because you were talking about an event that we might both have booths at. I just wanted to plug. It was October 18th.
Well, it seems like you have a couple things in North Carolina.
Yeah.
You have something in Franklin, which is way like past Asheville.
Yeah,
I think it's like a Bigfoot Comic-Con.
Something like that. I wasn't exactly sure of the details of those yet, so I'm not going to plug those until like I know the final.
Oh, you don't know? Okay, yeah.
But the two of them that I do know of is December 18th in Fort Myers, Florida. I'll be there at Charlie's Beyond Belief. Brooke from the Occult Rejects, she has her own show, Dark Florida. She will be there as one of the speakers, and we will have a booth there. And also in Arkansas, that has been finalized as well. That is the 25th and the 26th. And that's a paranormal event, and we will have a booth there. And they actually want us to try to go live and possibly like podcast and like interview people. I don't know. They were pretty much kind of giving me like do whatever I want to promote the place. But so it might be interesting. We might actually be kind of like set up. I might bring my shit and actually like set up the stuff and interview people live if I can do it. But that one should be really interesting. It's supposed to be like the biggest paranormal event in Arkansas annually. So those 2 days will be there.
Where in Arkansas is that?
Little Rock, Arkansas.
Little Rock. Okay. I don't know if you have time to drive near it's that over there. There's a park areas over there by the river Mississippi going into like Tennessee. Okay. But there's this whole area there that was like Old West Town. I can't even remember, but it's like right across the river there. But anyway, there's interesting stuff there, and I definitely saw like 2 pyramids. So I mean, it might be worth doing some exploring.
Yeah, if it's not too far,
Open to that. And there is some Indian mounds that are in that vicinity, which
I
I could give you more info, later on.
Yeah, for sure.
Because like I said, I mean, it was definitely, to me, if you look and you're filming there, you'll see, I'm just like, yeah, Paul's right. That thing looks like a pyramid. And it's like, it's almost it's smaller than a Pilot Mountain, but it does like, it's like, and in the old days, they considered it like a landmark, as a marker of like traveling, like, in terms of east, west, that kind of thing. So
gotcha.
Yeah.
There's stuff close by. I might have to do that.
Yeah. So
thank you again, Paul. Real quick, Jacqueline, let everybody know.
I hope it was entertaining enough. I think it's sort of like, I mean, there's so much stuff, and sometimes it just doesn't come out, and maybe like you read the book, you'll be like, whoa, man, this is something. I think the book is a little better than maybe I try to explain things, but it's like, but anyway, I'm hoping at one point, maybe, who knows, maybe it'll be on Netflix as a miniseries, who knows, that'd be good.
Gotta get those other books out, those other series.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. And I've already got ideas for the titles. I mean, everything's kind of, with reading his books, I already kind of got this idea of this underlying, because I put some underlying stuff, because in this book, I keep bringing up sort of the Arthurian sort of theme of the knights and stuff, and the fact it's sort of like a dark Camelot. Felsberg was set up as being like a Camelot, where these SS generals would get together and meet at a round table, which he built in the castle. And each general had his own room set up for him. So anyway, and they had this oral thing that they were going to burn the ashes and put them in these urns below in the lower level and stuff, and they were supposed to have this flame that was the eternal flame that was supposed to be going on underneath. I mean, I know that came to be, but this was the plans that he had and all this other stuff. I mean, Himmler had all these plans, but they never came. A lot of them never came to fruition. It was a good thing. Maybe it was a good thing. So.
Yeah, he had high aspirations.
Yeah, he had very high aspirations, and he was, he was an organizational genius. I mean, he was able to get these things. I mean, when you look at their timeline and what they were able to do, I mean, it's pretty. There was probably definitely magic going on, because it was just so freaking fast.
Come on,
it was just incredible. It was incredible. How fast it went. I mean, it was just, they were like, immediately everything was already there. It was just like, what, pretty incredible. Anyway, so that's my take.
Yes, Paul. Yeah. All right, real quick. Again, we'll try this again. Jacqueline, plug your show.
So you can check us out, myself and my co-host Sarah, at Universe Unveiled on YouTube. We drop a new episode every second Wednesday, and every Sunday we do a new segment.
Yes, that's right. I forgot about your Sunday stuff.
Yeah, it's a fun little 10 minute.
What kind of stuff do you cover with the news segment?
New discoveries, archaeological, science, philosophy, psychology, whatever's good.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Nice.
Yeah, and I just want to say thank you, Paul, for sharing. I'll definitely be checking your book out. I love anything to do with
sure. I mean, if you feel like you want me on your show, I'd certainly be willing to come on.
Yeah, for sure. I'll find you on X.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
I'll start.
Yeah, now you have to start using X.
Now I have to start posting on X. Yes, you're right.
Nice.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Of course. Yeah. Thank you. And Tyrone, sir, please let everybody know where they can find your amazing stuff as well.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. So yeah, I want to say I'm definitely gonna look for you on X also because I probably want to dig into and talk to you more about it because I do like to talk to authors of books that I've read and I love reading books. So I'm definitely gonna pick up your books. I took some notes down of where I can get your books at from Amazon, so I already have them in my cart ready to get bought. So
Very good.
appreciate that.
Like I
Nick,
said,
for
I
letting
mean,
me.
my book leads to other books, which I think
Yeah.
you'll like because I do use other and films too. I mean, films I grew up with were definitely an influence with the story. Good film you want to watch is Castle Keep. I highly
Okay.
recommend it. So you can check that out. It came out like late '60s with Burt Lancaster, and Burt Lancaster is kind of a composite of Wolf in a way. They're kind of an American version, I guess. But that movie made a huge impact on me, you know, and so and and the cinematography is really nice in the film. And it was very Spielberg was very influenced. I mean, you see the movie, and it's like, oh yeah, he took this and used it in Private Ryan. So you'll see what was done. It was just a total ripoff for Private Ryan. There's this one scene you'll see, it'll be like, oh, that's where he got it. Yeah. So anyway, but and there's other films and other influences that kind of influenced the book and try to experiment. Hopefully some of them worked. The experiments, we'll see. It's my first, so you know how it goes. So anyway, but Nick, hey,
Yeah.
appreciate this, bro, and you were gentle with me, so I appreciate it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, he saw me on my worst spazzing out on one of the fucking George's fucking henchmen.
Well, I mean,
yo, that guy had.
it was. I mean, we can laugh at it now, but I know
Oh
you were
yeah.
just that whole thing with But I mean, if they didn't communicate with you clearly about what you could and could not do. I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, I don't know. That's what it
I
sounded
wasn't
like.
even bad about that. It's just like when you're telling me I got to give you everything on that, whatever. I'm not.
Well, that was
the whole
kind of
situation.
yeah.
I was just like, that makes
Yeah.
no fucking sense. Go fuck yourself.
Yeah, right.
That wasn't happening. But yeah. So I was nothing
Other
like
than
that.
that,
It was a lot easier. So I'm sure it was a lot more fun. So good.
okay. Well, if we'll be in touch, but hey,
Definitely.
if you're thinking about you being in the area, certainly let me know.
Yeah. No,
We
me and
could get
Tyrone are
together.
talking about going to Mount Pilot at some point in the future. So yeah. So
Right.
I keep forgetting you live right over there. So I'll definitely.
Yeah. I'm about 45 minutes to 50 minutes away. So I'm not that far at all,
2
actually.
hours for me, I think.
Yeah. So.
All right. Thank you again, and thank you, Jacqueline. Thank you, Tyrone, and thank you everybody in the chat. That's what's up. I appreciate it. And until the next one, everybody be well.
All right.
Thanks, Nick.
Yes.